Alrighty, let's get started. Welcome back to the next iteration podcast, Keeyan. Thank you so much for hopping on. We're really excited to talk to you. For those of you who are not aware of this beautiful, insane human being, Keeyan Ravanshid, I actually met him through a mutual friend, Tristan, who is one of the loveliest human beings I know. A good friend of mine who went to McMaster, lives here in New York City, and honestly, I don't really know how we connected, Keon, but somehow we connected on a spiritual level. And really wanted to bring you on the podcast for a few reasons. One, I just think you're an amazing speaker and you'll have some crazy stories to tell. Especially running for office, and that story would be a great soundbite on the podcast. But also because you're very knowledgeable about the crypto space. You have a ton of experience starting your own ventures, serial entrepreneur, one might say. And we haven't really interviewed that many people in the crypto space, and I know that a lot of stuff is changing. So yeah, wanna have a good conversation about, want to learn from you, and want to just kind of get to know you as a human being. So thank you so much for hopping on.
Dude, thank you. That was a stellar introduction. I'm honored. I'm
A
honored to
stellar human
be.
being deserves a stellar introduction. What can I say?
Ah, you're too kind. You're too kind. You're too
Um, yeah, I mean, like Fuad's been hyping you up to me this whole time, so ex- there's you have a lot to live up to. But I think we need to start with something important here. So, part of the reason we wanted to have this conversation is kind of as like a little bit more of an intro, accessible crypto crash course talk type thing. The market's been pretty hot lately. Check back in my portfolio, and for the first time in like years, it's green, which is crazy. But I wanted to first start with something that came across my desk not too long ago. And it's a study by the group is it's called Date Psychology. So I don't know if you saw this at all. You're starting to smile already. Oh, okay, Paul shared something in there.
I got
But
an Instagram. I got an Instagram message today from a special someone with the opposite of this, like the most attractive male hobbies, and it was just like total lies, like reading
yeah.
books, knitting, like
Yeah,
stuff like that.
I don't know where like all of this came from, but I wanted you to, have the space here, the stage to, set the record straight. So I mean, you kind of jumped the gun a little bit, but it's essentially ranking the most and least attractive hobbies perceived by men and women alike. And, it seems like fairly consistently that crypto comes up in the top or like least 15 attractive male hobbies as perceived by women. So Keon, what do you have to say to the women out there?
I bet you know what the top one most attractive hobby is?
What is that?
What is it?
Making money. It's
Okay,
like,
that's a fantastic answer. I mean, it's a lifestyle at that point, right?
I mean, dude, listen, I get it. Like, I'm looking at the list. Obviously, comic books, cosplay, debating, drinking. I mean, okay, we have a lot to discuss here.
If you're
What's
self-reporting
MTG?
drinking as a hobby, you got a fucking problem. That's called being an alcoholic. That's not
What's
a hobby.
MTG? What's MTG?
I actually have no idea what that is.
I have no idea. And then makeup. Well, sorry, but you're probably gay. Um, you know, okay, cigars. Okay, clubbing. Funko. I don't know what Funko is.
Like those Funko Pops, those little like big headed, like I don't want to say action figures, but like action figures. I don't know. They're like a collectible thing.
I guess it's a good thing that we don't know what that is. Like, I don't know what that is. Arguing online is
As
I
a
don't know if
hobby
that's a
is crazy.
sport. I don't know if that's a sport because it's one word. Gambling, manosphere, like some of these, I would say, okay, so crypto, I get it. Like, it's on the list. It's probably because it's like referring to, like crypto bros, of
Yeah.
course. Like, crypto bros are,
Would you consider yourself a crypto bro?
no, I'm a crypto man. It's a me it's just another industry, it's just like do I believe in it, at a ideological level? Yes. Do I believe it's a good evolution of technology that, will bring like positivity and better outcomes for people around the world? Yes. But I'm not dogmatic about it, or I don't think that that it like I everything in my life revolves around it, or like there's people who might be like, oh, I gotta, like the guy that bought pizza with Bitcoin, 12 years
Yeah.
ago or something. Do you know about that story?
Yeah.
So like obviously he was probably, like if to do that kind of stuff you have to be like the term inside the crypto community is like a maxi, where it basically you live your life around the principles of the industry of the concept of cryptocurrency, and the like you believe that blockchain technology has to become ubiquitous in society. I like the philosophy behind the technology of blockchain and cryptocurrency, which is a use of blockchain, for monetary policy reasons, let's say, or the monetary, or as a replacement to the current monetary system. But I don't think that everything in life has to do with crypto. Like I don't equate the way I live my life to what I'm doing work wise, which is to bring crypto to the forefront. Just like, we have in the world, we have like, let's say, people who could say that they are in nuclear fusion technology development. Yes, it will change everything about energy worldwide, but they don't live their life just seeking opportunities to like do nuclear fusion everywhere.
Before we get into that, Keeyan, I know that, you started from early days lemonade stand type shit. You've been founding and starting your own ventures for a long time. Specifically, I know this because of Arcus with Tristan. Arcus was a consultancy shop that Tristan started that I know that you worked with as well. So rewind it to the beginning. Why are you interested in starting your own shit? Like, what is the appeal here? I know it's deeper than fuck that. I don't want to work for anyone else. I want to do my own shit. But yeah, explain little Keeyan and his psychology and why, how and why you morphed into this insane individual today.
Oh man, I mean, it's a long story, but basically, so I think fundamentally, I always was a contrarian, from early days. Um, I was definitely like a guy that wanted to know the why behind everything. Even as a younger guy, as a student, I didn't like it when the teacher would just say like, "Well, this is the way it is, and this is 5 times 5 equals 25, and also by the way, like this is the Constitution of Canada, and this I don't and this is such and such rule. I want to know, okay, why did it become a rule? Why do we have this system of elections? Why is something correct or incorrect in the eyes of morality that teachers teach kids?" And that evolved into me basically wanting to have the ability to kind of make things in my image, and that counted at work as well, you know?
Hmm. When you say make things in your image, what do you mean by that?
Like, if you have an idea and you want to basically, bring your idea to the world, it's you're kind of like, you're kind of actually, what you're doing is you're taking what's in your head and you are making it so that everyone can use or benefit or interact with what's going on in your head. And you can't
Hmm.
necessarily do that when you're not an entrepreneur, because unless you're such a senior executive at a company where you have the flexibility to bring complete things to market, you can't do that. And even then, you won't own the result. And I was really, really interested in owning things, because I liked the notion that I could creatively bring something that's in my mind to to fruition. And then, like, also to your point about just, uh, other than that, to like the general entrepreneurial spirit, as it ties into me as a person growing up, I think I had a lot of people around me that were from entrepreneurial backgrounds where I grew up. And I was
Hmm.
like, look at the freedom that they have in to live different kinds of lives. In a It's not freedom completely, because in many ways being an entrepreneur is actually less freeing, unless you make it to multi-billion-dollar exits where you really don't have to work, and you can just have total agency over your life. But typically you're probably less free because everything, the buck stops with you. But you're free to do things in your way and live your life in your way. And I thought that was fantastic, and I didn't want to give up the opportunity to just jump right into that kind of lifestyle and build towards the exit that gives me total freedom to then, you know, um, remove economics from the list of things that I consider when I'm thinking about how I spend my time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you touched on there in terms of the creativity resonates extremely deeply with me. In a way, like entrepreneurs are artists. Like an artist is trying to figure out what to get out of their head and share it with the world in what specific format. You do that through visual arts, you can do that through painting, you can do that through music. But what I'm hearing is you're choosing to do that through this act of entrepreneurship, through product creation, through sharing an idea, bringing it to market. Like, and then with that comes obviously the spoils, which are very nice. Let's
Yeah,
not beat around the
exactly.
bush.
Exactly. I mean, dude, like if you think about it, really what's going on that is as an entrepreneur is it's like an artist, but you're an economic artist in a way where your job is to make something that people love and that they are willing to pay more for than to make themselves, or pay more for than what the amount of like love and creativity that you put into it. It's a price that it's basically you're creating a piece of art that functionally is creating more in the world than it costs to make. Of course, that sounds very reductive and obvious, but what people don't understand is, I think, when people who are not entrepreneurs don't understand is that as an entrepreneur, like you're not necessarily just there because you have great ideas. You're there because you are able to actually do the great ideas, execute those great ideas, like faster, better, cheaper, and in a more rapid fire way, one after the other, one after the other, and one after the other. You have to keep going um, to keep basically being successful because you run it because the first thing that you do will might be successful, but it's not going to be long lived.
Mhm.
I think my Yeah, I know you said it was reductive, but I think it relates to how some of the best advice in life is what we've heard a million times over. And the same things that we continue to ignore just because we've heard it so much, it sounds so obvious and so trite, but there's a reason why it's become so it's stood the test of time. Heard this advice time and time and time again. It's because it's what's real, it's what matters. And people tend to overlook that. And when it comes to entrepreneurship, I think the fundamental at a fundamental level, the thing you're doing is just value creation. Because people hear entrepreneurship and they're like, okay, I got to build a SpaceX, I got to build a Tesla, I got to build some Fortune 500 company. But to be an entrepreneur, all you have to do is create value for somebody else. And that could look so different from inception to inception. And I don't remember if I like gone on this tirade on the pod before, but like I've
Mhm.
talked about this with a couple of people, and like my favorite example of this, like furry artists. Like I know several, not personally, but I know several
You are one of
extremely
them.
on
How did you get to
genuinely
that?
Dog,
This has
I
not
wish
been
I
on the
had the
podcast
talent for
for show.
drawing.
I did not know about this.
No, I genuinely wish I had the talent for this because I'd be able to retire with like and be comfortable for the rest of my life, dude. Like I know people that are making like several six figures, getting commissions off of these drawings, and that's value creation, you know? And like that could happen, and that could be it can take form in so many different ways. The reason I love talking about this as an example is because it's so absurd that it just drives the point home, right? When it comes to value creation, because people think it has to be this like force for good, and not to say that furry porn is a force for bad, but maybe it's just this thing that just exists in the world that some people, if to them, they value it like very heavily, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, like to tie up the tirade, value creation can take several different forms. You just got to figure out what people want in the world and that they're willing to pay for. And ultimately, if you're able to provide that, you're an entrepreneur. You don't need to overthink it.
Yeah, anything that's worth more to people than they're willing to do themselves. You know, it's really it's really that. Also, sometimes, like I said, it's just like nobody has the gumption to go and actually do it. It's like opportunistic in a way. It's just as economies evolve, things are become less about opportunistic behavior in business and more about like precise precision. But if you think about like businesses in colonial times for North
Hmm.
America, when North America was being colonized by mostly the Europeans, a lot of the early entrepreneurs were just people who were willing to go further north to get better beaver skins or whatever.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
risk reward calculation. Yeah.
exactly.
Have you read a VC in American history, like the origination of venture capital and like the American expeditions, etc.? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Canada being Canadian, like basically, I don't know. I mean, I think you grew up in the U.S., right, Fuad?
10 years in the US, and I moved to Toronto when I was like 10 or 11. Yeah.
Okay, so like in Canada they like indoctrinated us with the history and everything, and like the early VCs were basically the people that were funding these expeditions, not even sure if the ship was going to return, or after they had already landed, it was like companies like the Northwestern Territory Company or whatever it was called, like the Hudson's Bay,
Hmm.
Rupert's Company, and all this stuff that were the OG, VC firms, just being like, yeah, here's a bunch of like shillings or you know rupees, take it like 800 miles north on a donkey. Maybe you'll come back, maybe not, and or maybe you'll just steal it and just disappear. We don't know. But if they do come back, they were going to make a killing.
Hmm. Yeah. It's like the adventure, the spirit of adventure. And that has
Exactly.
like never left the human spirit. While it may have taken different forms, like geography exploration is no longer as relevant, but it is
Yeah.
still there.
Exactly. 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 Um, yeah. Yeah. It's
So
taking me
okay,
back.
question on that. Like you kind of gave us the background on like entrepreneurship, why you're interested in it, sort of what speaks to you spiritually about entrepreneurship. Why crypto then? Like what is the market like what about crypto makes it that interesting that you're like, yeah, fuck it. Go quant, COO, like I'm doing this. This is the space I'm going to be in. This is where I'm going to build my, you know, competitive expertise in. Maybe it's not just crypto, maybe there are other things you have a competitive expertise in, which I'd love to dive into. But yeah, why crypto? Like why is that connected to what you just said?
I like doing things that are like, like on the sort of like forefront of stuff, right?
Hmm.
I enjoy everything. I enjoy everything. But I mostly love doing stuff that is like what you could call classically innovative. So it's classically innovative to, be basically working in an industry that's completely new and that purports to be transformative for the world. That's what crypto was to me, is to me, but was to me, especially 4 years ago. when a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's still a bit of a joke." 4 years ago, it's like Dogecoin and like MAGA coin and like Pokemon coin and stuff like that, and w- uh, then but the people that were behind it were like, actually no, it's the future, and all of you are asleep, and that's like piqued my inner contrarian interest. I was like, who's wrong, you know
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
it's just like a conspiracy theory for me. Like I'm always like hoping it's true, because it's like you're kind of like, oh, I want the underdog to win. And
Hmm.
for me, it was one of those kinds of moments when I first got into crypto, like personally, years before, just investing and buying Bitcoin and buying Ethereum and Litecoin, and I liked like Filecoin a lot too, and etc. But I got into it, and then I realized like everyone that is all of the Jamie Dimons of this world are just wrong. They're completely wrong about. He was, I don't know if you remember, but that's the CEO of JPMC, by JP Morgan Chase, and he was like, "Oh, it's a scam," and talking like that, and yeah, I just was like, either one, either the people that are saying it's a scam are right and the other ones are like wrong, or the ones who are saying it's a scam are wrong, but the ones that are saying that this is the future are like super duper right. You know,
Hmm.
outsized return on being involved with something that basically can just change the world. It's like inventing the internet, or
Hmm.
inventing the car, or the airplane, or electricity.
Hmm.
Mm.
Like that's how I see it. And I was like, I cannot miss the opportunity. I mean, especially if there's a way to do this professionally and I'm not, tanking every other good thing going on for me in my career, which I was not. It's like, can I get involved in this professionally and just say that I participated in, not just to say, be able to say, but like to feel like I
Like
participated in
philosophically,
something
yeah.
that, yeah, something that actually like is helping the world, making me have a good career, aligned with my personal and philosophical beliefs about like freedom and uh, economic sanity and economic prosperity, or
Accessibility,
whatever. Yeah, you
yeah.
call it. I'm like, I have to find out what's going on. And I did, and I got involved in the space, and quickly I realized that I think the minority is right, and now the minority is actually probably the majority. The roles have flipped. If you if you don't believe in crypto, or if you don't understand why it's important, or I mean, or if you're not committed to understanding why it's important, and if you think that it is nonsense, you are part of the minority, and you're probably behind on the opportunity to really prosper from its proliferation as the next means of storing value and transferring value reliably without an intermediary. That's why I got involved. I Yeah, yeah. I don't know if that answers.
So
Well,
yeah, and before we get like too deeper with this, I guess like it would be useful just to start with some basic definitions of everything. Like just understand the characters involved in the play so that we can actually explore everything
for
and
sure.
give it due course. So what is cryptocurrency? You mentioned blockchain before as well. What is blockchain? And just introduce us to the characters involved in all this.
So, blockchain is basically a technology. It's a concept. It's not a. It's a concept. It's a technological concept that basically involves a decentralized ledger. So it's like if you were to be, let's say you, Damien, are a person that has a piece of paper, and on that paper, your job is to just write everything down. Like accounts. Like Fuad has $5, Keeyan has $10, Tristan has $8, Matt has $35.
Holy, that's rich.
Matt, yeah, I mean, listen, you know, uh, Ian has 30 cents. If you're sorry, if your job is to write down all of that, then we all have to trust you to obviously keep an accurate account. And also on the flip side of that, the other part is that we rely on you to just record like things as they change. So you have a lot of work to do. But like blockchain basically is a way to take what you have and you're writing down and copy it onto everyone's. So like I'll have a copy, Fuad would have a copy, Matt would have a copy, et cetera, et cetera. Ian would have a copy, and then every time we do basically a transaction, that ledger is updated across the board, and a critical mass, like a majority of the ledgers, agree on the update. And if they do agree on the update, then the update is cryptographically signed. And that's basically a way to exchange two passwords, let's say, to simplify it. It's a little more complicated than that, but two passwords that you can then verify that whoever has a cryptographically signed copy of the ledger has the most up-to-date version. That's what a blockchain is. It's just like saying that instead of having one central accountant, everyone will have a copy of the full accounts, and the majority of people have to agree on the account for that account to be listed as true, as the true copy. Mm-hmm. Now, crypto is just using that concept to create essentially a transfer of value and a storage of value mechanism. Yeah. Now, some of them, like Bitcoin, are currencies, really, in the true sense. And then you might have others that are like securities, because they represent like a portion of some underlying asset. But the cryptocurrencies, essentially, as a whole, if we want to give a general definition, are basically a token, a secret, essentially, like cryptographic thing that you hold on a wallet, either like a cold wallet, it could be like a USB key, that represents some form of value that you can then directly exchange with another person.
Got it. So I think we understand crypto, we understand blockchain. What I really want to, and Damien, the way you asked this question was really dope. But like the story is you got the Jamie Dimons of the world, and you got like the people who created this technology, your Satoshis of the world, and you got the evangelists. Why is there such a conflict? Like, what we have these characters, but what's going on? Like, what's the conflict here? What's the underdog story here?
I mean, you have to think about this really, like, go to first principles of the current financial, like, monetary system worldwide. The introduction of a way to replace the entire current monetary system with, the introduction being basically the coming of age of cryptocurrencies, is destabilizing to like the worldview and the businesses and the power complex of all these people. I mean, if you're a large bank, and you realize that people will now be able to directly transfer value to each other without an intermediary, you're like, oh gosh, my business, like my payments business, where I'm charging $30 for a wire transfer, or $8 for an ACH, that's going to disappear. My ability to like take deposits and then farm those deposits for interest and then transfer money to whoever the first person instructed me to send their money to, that's gone. So, so it hurts their business. And then from a government standpoint, it hurts their ability to control people through economic pressure because people won't need central banks and won't be, at the mercy basically of a central bank's desire to just unnecessarily print cash. Printing cash, inflation is a tax on people. It's just an indirect tax, but really, what is inflation? It's when the central bank is printing cash, and to print cash, what they have to do is issue essentially bonds. The government will send an IOU to the central bank. The central bank then prints cash. What is the collateral behind that cash that's being printed out of thin air? It's the tax base. It's the promise of future revenues from the citizenry. So it's really a tax. It's just not direct. Now, if you are a government, you are able to use that as a way to control the economy and to push for outcomes, social outcomes that you believe in. Crypto eliminates that possibility completely. And then on top of that, the third element, of course, is like if you are a old school thinker beyond somebody who's necessarily in government or at a business that's affected, if you're just a thought leader, culturally speaking, well, you might also just be put off by the idea that the status quo of the monetary system will be completely perverted by this, I would call it an innovation that eliminates, like the ability of the wise ruling class to control the world.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that was excellent. I'm gonna keep talking on this fair because I like the storytelling aspect we got going on. So
Sure.
we explained crypto, we explained blockchain, we explained the different players and why this conflict exists. Where are we in the conflict now? Like, I know that a lot of regulation is changing. Like, I mean, you can read the headlines, like Howard Lutnick, the Commerce chief pick, UK's, recent legislation, a strategic Bitcoin reserve, etc. We can dive into like each of these topics very granularly, but
I was lucky enough, by the way, to see Howard Lutnick last week. Just speaking of,
you're a demon. Jeez. What was he like in person?
I mean, so Cantor Fitzgerald last week, I was at Cantor Fitzgerald's conference in Miami last week, and they had like a star-studded, list of attendees, including like the CEO of Pantera, Dan Moorhead. They had Michael Saylor gave an hour and a half, I think, presentation. It must have been at least an hour. I think it was an hour and a half over lunch. And it was the most enthusiastic, prescient, and motivational presentation on the future of the monetary system in the world as it relates to crypto and Bitcoin specifically, because MicroStrategy, his company, is like deep in Bitcoin. And Howard Lutnick was, at his own company's conference. It was an incredible conference, and where we're at now, like I said, is like I think the majority of people are like, oh, this isn't a joke anymore. Major businesses are like, we need to get involved. The U.S. government under the new administration is considering a plan to actually fix the debt and deficit problem using Bitcoin, which is just crazy. So where we're at now is I think it's like we're at the mass adoption point in history where in the next 2 years, we're going to see massive amounts of shift of the traditional payment systems in this country to using cryptocurrencies, specifically Bitcoin and both public and private blockchains. We're going to see a total cheapening of all kinds of financial services that retail people are like the tokenization of real world assets will make market access much more democratic and cheaper.
Hmm.
So everyday people will be able to access like all kinds of investment products that only institutions were able to access before. So I think that will probably make the wealth gap smaller. And I also think that we're going to see a shift in the world order because of digital assets, because the US government is instituting a strategic Bitcoin reserve, which is going to really help them shrink the debt and deficit, get a handle on inflation, and cement their place in the world as the reserve currency.
Hmm.
And that will have geopolitical impacts, including weakening the BRICS alliance and shoring up, U.S.'s allies that are in a bad financial spot, and also preventing, other countries which have been so far ahead of the U.S. in terms of their crypto and digital asset, industry growth
Hmm.
to bring that growth back to the US, and those companies' productivity and contributions to GDP will make us world leader again in innovation.
I love how you say us, but you're Canadian.
I'm a member of the clan now, if you'll have me. If you'll have me.
I'll marry you, Keon. Just be careful, it comes with strings attached if I give you a green card. Um, okay. I wanna yeah, fuck. This is exactly what I want to talk about. So maybe like a pointed specific question, like and I don't mean this to be inflammatory whatsoever. This is purely intellectual. But what about the current administration? Like lends itself to being something that can enable this to happen? Is it less about the current administration versus the previous versus all the possible administration and more about where we are on the adoption curve, simply like in time and in the kind of momentum that Bitcoin and crypto largely has been experiencing? Or is it something about the administration?
It's it's a little bit about the administration, dude. It's like, look, a couple of things. And like all these questions you're asking, I have to answer in like in wider in a wider format because like
Of
it
course, of
needs it.
course.
But I'm sorry if I'm like go off track. But basically, it's like the new administration. It's about vibes. Okay, you need you can quote me on that. Vibes are important, and I mean you guys know where I'm down here in Florida. I don't know if we mentioned that. So you're in New York, right? I'm in
Jamie's in
Florida. Like,
Toronto.
look,
I'm in New York. But yeah,
I'm in Florida. Last week I was in California. I went to California on election day. I flew on election day. I actually did I? No, no, no. I flew on. I was supposed to fly on election day. I flew on Wednesday, the 6th, the day after the election, and dude, there's just something in the air in America right now, which is just amazing. The energy is intoxicating in the best way. Florida is on steroids right now. The vibes are important and they're positive, and this administration has said that they are not closed to innovation, and I think that's across all sectors. And it's not even political. It's just they're they're like we need a renewal in America. Now, I don't. There are many like things that people want the renewal to look like, which are different from one another, like different. But I think everybody wants
yeah.
a renewal of our
Things need to change.
institutions.
Yeah,
What? Sorry.
things just need to change.
Yeah, a renewal of our institutions, a renewal of our culture, a renewal of our um, spirit, entrepreneurial spirit, productive spirit. This is the country that invented the automobile. This is the country that invented the assembly line, the plane, the internet. You know, this is the country that basically made nuclear energy possible. Um, and a bunch of other things. Not to take away from obviously I'm Canadian, so I love Canada, and Canada has done a lot of great things too. But this country in 200 and how many years has it been? Like 220 years, 240 years. It's coming up on 250, right? Soon. In 250 years, 248 years, the U.S. has done what thousands of years of human history was not able to do as an independent nation, completely independent. And this new administration has come into place and said that chapter was great, and let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's build again. Take down what isn't working, doge it, and and take what is working and just boost it to 1 million, and whatever we took down that wasn't working, let's build it again from zero in the right way. And frankly, crypto is just one of the many things that they are looking at and have said this is part of the great ideas list that the US has had. Fourth.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's a good way of explaining it. Like the vibes.
It's
It's less
vibes.
about, yeah, it's less about like a specific policy. It's less about a specific change. It's more like, are we down to change? Like,
Yeah,
can we
it's
do
like
something new?
it's like it's like get Gensler, the party pooper, out. You know, he might be an amazing. I don't know. Like, is he a great lawyer? I don't even know if he's a lawyer. Might be an amazing lawyer. Might be a really good commissioner from like a policy minutia perspective. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm putting it out there. Like, I don't think he must have some good things about him. But the bad thing is he's just a negative leader for financial services. And even when we want people to crack down and to put their foot down and keep like the American investing public safe and all that great stuff from a policy perspective, we want positivity overall to be the energy around any industry which is good for this country and for the world. And this administration is saying that we that's the energy we're looking for. Whether it's like, and you see it in their picks. Like, I don't think that they've picked amazing people in every position, but what I do see is they picked people that have like positive energy. Whether or not I agree with the pick or the pedigree of the pick or the quality of the individual from a morality standpoint and from a from like a the quality of
Their moral and ethical character, like
yeah,
what?
their
Yeah.
ethic, their character. There's definitely things that can be said about some of the picks, but I think that like all of the picks represent us. At least they have one thing in common, which is that they are people that have gone out and like talked in a hopeful and optimistic way about potential and opportunity,
Hmm.
and I think that's amazing.
So you talk about the vibe shift, and you're framing this picture about how government adoption will greatly sway or greatly influence how slippery of a slope adoption ends up being in the near term, in the long term. And it's easy to paint this utopian picture of, everyone's going to have crypto in not too long. But what is the biggest growing pain facing that adoption at this point? Like it's been a huge like from the dude buying pizzas to Tesla adding it to the balance sheet to now governments signaling their support for it. What gets us over the line? And what's preventing us from doing so right now?
Like governments need to just like make the rules clear. There are no rule like there is no clear, unique, defined set of rules. And and then the second thing is like just like continuously more evangelizing around so that just the entire public understands how the system works the same way that pretty much the entire public understands at a base level like how email works, how the internet works, how, the credit card payment system works, sort of. Maybe people don't fully get it, but
I don't think anyone
you
understands
know
that in America. I'm not gonna lie, but
what?
I don't think anyone in America actually understands that, or like a retail person understands that. But
Yeah, but I
yes,
think most people
point
understand that,
understood.
like, they use a credit card and then the terminal kind of contacts like the bank, and it like then sends money from their credit card like provider to the store, and then they get billed by the, like, they understand the flow, and they
Hmm.
understand that like stores have to pay a small fee and that they have to pay their credit card back, and if they don't there's interest. Like the kind of like gist of it is well understood, and I think like for the internet, people understand that it's like a collection of basically wires that is connecting everyone, and that instead of like them having to have 4 million wires to connect to 4 million people, they have one wire to one place, and that one place has 4 million wires. You know, um, so like they get that part, and they also understand. Let's say like when it comes to, most people understand like when it comes to email, that the way it works is that basically, they have text being sent over the internet between basically two servers, and that they connect to a server instead of connecting to like that person directly, like over radio. These nuances are understood, but I don't think I could say the same for cryptocurrency, or for let's say just Bitcoin being the biggest one and probably the most useful one in this digital assets revolution. I don't think that most people understand necessarily even the basics. So they just know that it's essentially a digital currency. So it's a store of value and a transfer of value mechanism. They just know those two things, that it can be converted for cash, and that into U.S. cash, and that it is something that can go up and down in terms of value vis-a-vis the U.S. dollar or any other fiat. But beyond that, they don't necessarily get even the basics of how it works. So like, why is it worth something? Scarcity. And how is it basically represented, um, vital to understand why it's useful. So if we continue to basically teach and educate people on that, and if we get a set of clear rules, I think I think that's it. And I am confident that that's going to happen in the next 2 years.
I
What's the
think
biggest
that's
rule
a
that we need
really
to clear up? Like what is the actual rule here? Like what is the legislation or regulation that would result in this adoption? I mean,
I
there's a
mean,
bunch.
we just need to have a law passed that defines the entire regulatory framework for our digital assets. And like there are proposed laws. The most famous one is, I think, Senator Lummis. Let me see what her full name is. I'm wondering. Is it Diane Lummis? No, no. Let's see. Lummis, Cynthia Lummis. The Bitcoin Act. So she, has a really good proposal. Uh, wow. Stands for Boosting Innovation, Technology, and Competitiveness through Optimized Investment Nationwide.
I
Bitcoin
can't
Act.
believe it.
They were reaching with that one, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like that, for example, will assign will basically spell out the rules. So here's how we'll regulate custodians. Here's how we'll regulate. No. Here are the causes of action. What are public causes of action? Key time causes of action. Private causes of action. That's like ways you can sue people. Who's the regulator in charge of enforcing? What are the penalties for violations? What's the process for federal seizures? All this. So it'll spell out everything. And just like banks have, the Bank Act or the Bank Secrecy Act that regulate their behavior, crypto companies will have an act that regulates their behavior. And that way, they're not afraid to just be like shut down or thrown in jail by the US government or any government, let's say, in the world. And also people are not afraid about what happens if, let's say, like here's like the most common possible scenario is like if I, let's say, use a company to that provides an on-ramp to crypto, and that just basically means that buys my US dollar and gives me like a stable coin that I can then use to swap into or out of like BTC or any other crypto. That could be like an exchange, like Coinbase. Now, what happens if, I don't know, Coinbase, I'm using their wallet and they lose somehow the keys and then my crypto is lost? Do I have to like sue Coinbase? Like, what are, like, right now I'd have to sue them. And the rules are not all fully clear on like exactly who's liable for what and who's going to win, and therefore am I going to get my money back? Does Coinbase pay me back? Are the deposits insured, FDIC insured? If Coinbase was holding the USD that they bought from me to give me a stable coin, like where is that FDIC insured because it's in a normal bank, and can I access that to reach? So all these things are unclear, and so having a law and having fair and equal enforcement of that law will make it really safe for everyone.
Yeah, a
Um,
comprehensive framework for how
yeah,
this interaction should happen. Yeah.
yeah, and if a company does something wrong, you need to be able to sue them in normal courts, like like I said, like we're not. It's not replacing everything in just like crypto and yeah, crypto is not replacing everything in society. It's basically evolving a certain aspect of society, like the monetary policy aspect of society, and but it's still connected to all of our normal like institutions, like the legal system, for example. And you need to be able to use the legal system to like hold companies and people that are in the crypto world accountable. So we need rules that say how they're expected to act and what you can do about it when something goes outside of that expectation.
So you think the future is crypto and fiat, not crypto or fiat?
Yeah, I think it's crypto and fiat.
Okay, so you said something before that I wanted to dig into because I think it's important. And like you said, like most people don't actually understand what this is all about. And I think most people, when they think of crypto, they just think it's just about making money. It's just a way to make more money. They just see it as an asset that they're able to hold. They see maybe some of their friends are making a lot of money off of Bitcoin because they bought early. Plenty of such cases. But what's a use case that you can think of that would be able to genuinely improve lives either at like a national or global level?
Who thinks that?
I think most people do. Like when they think about crypto or like the regular person that maybe not
A
is not too
layperson.
deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Like the
retail
average
investor
Joe
even.
Schmo that's watching TikTok and he's like, fuck, Bitcoin's hella
I gotta
high
get
right
in on
now.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's entirely true, and I'll tell you why. Because if they, I mean, I guess the average person might think that, but I don't know, because there are a lot of people that also think it's like a direct path to losing all your money. You know
That's
what I
true.
mean? Like,
It's like anecdotal experience, but like generally people are putting money in because they think they can make a lot of money on it.
yeah, and they probably can, because like there is a very, very high probability that in general the price of major cryptos will go up. Um,
Maybe let me try to reframe the question. Like the average Joe Schmo, whether they think it'll go up, whether they think it'll go down, anecdotally, the average Joe Schmo is like, okay, crypto's cool, whatever. It's like I can make money off it, maybe I can lose money off it. It's just another asset class. But what do
yeah,
you think is the poster child use case of crypto? Like you were talking to this guy, you just met him at a party, fucking matinee on after party. It's 5 a.m. and he's like, ah, you work in crypto. Like, okay, so what? Like, why is this such a big fucking deal? And you
Well,
need to explain it.
I wouldn't be there. I'd be sleeping.
No, you're there. You're there. You're there. You're part of the fucking vendor. It's 5 a.m., 13th today. And yeah, this guy comes up to you and what do you say to him to get him to understand in a super succinct way? Like, hey, it's not just like a fucking asset class. Like, what is the poster child use case you would use to describe that story? Like, this is changing how humans
You
interact.
and I can pay each other and then keep that money without relying on anyone else. It's like teaching a man to fish versus giving him a fish. That's like literally it. It's like I can send money to you and you can send money to me, and then we can all keep that money safely without depending on anyone.
Mm.
It eliminates the need for intermediaries. And like most people would be like, I literally had that conversation, and someone was like, "Oh, but I could send you money directly with like Venmo or Zelle," and I'm like, "I'm sorry, I don't know if you realize like there's that's an intermediary. You know, Venmo is a private company that is taking my money, putting it into their account, and then taking money from their account and sending that to you.
Hmm.
A you know, the blockchain allows us via cryptocurrencies, digital currencies, to send money to each other completely peer to peer. Like it's just me. There are two parties, me and you, and it's a protocol obviously that uses the internet, and so it's completely frictionless. And by the way, beyond just being a mechanism for the transfer of value, what I have said, and I really like the way that Mike Saylor put it last week in his presentation. Also, was it's a mechanism for the store of value. I don't need a Fort Knox or even a safety deposit box or a bank account for that matter when I have a custodial wallet, a digital wallet that contains my crypto, that's as secure as the most secure banking vaults are today, and I can store my crypto and it will appreciate in value over time, no matter what, because of the scarcity, because there is a cap on the total number of Bitcoin to be issued. Talking specifically about Bitcoin of 21 million coins. So
Yeah, until you
yeah,
lose your key. Um,
until you lose your key, and that's by the way, and that's where like having non-custodial wallet solutions with a real world legal regulatory framework is totally amazing. That's where you mix the benefits of crypto with some of the realities for the common person, like practicalities, like you said. Of course, it dampens the true value of crypto, but not completely, only a little
yeah.
bit. But you get a big benefit for the average person, which is like they can then get their wallets to be custodied by a qualified regulated custodian. That if that custodian loses their keys, there are clear, spelt out, real world legal consequences, recourse remedies, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to add a little bit more color to the question I asked initially, just to like throw a few more lobs and some examples that like there's two that come to mind. The first is one that we're already seeing today in terms of what are some use cases beyond just making money off of crypto. The first is this is happening a lot in like third world countries, even in South America, this is happening a lot. But servicing the underbanked or population that just doesn't have a bank account at all. They're able
Mm.
to still participate in in economic transactions by using Bitcoin or by using whatever cryptocurrency because so many more people are starting to adopt it now, especially in those communities where banks aren't ubiquitous. And the second kind of use case I can think of as well is uh, more transparent charity. And I say this because like charity is such a like people look at charitable organizations and at some level feels like people are losing trust in it just because there's so many instances of fraud. Like you say you're gonna give money to this African village, and it ends up in the director's pocket instead, right?
Nigerian prince shit, bro.
Yeah, exactly. But with blockchain, you can actually track where all the money's going. You can track the transactions to make sure that these guys aren't bullshitting. They're actually putting the money where they're supposed to be. And that's effective altruism at like it's in its highest form, right?
Yeah.
So two such cases.
What's the like what I mean, I would just say that that's good. I don't know what to say to that other than that's like are you saying that the that crypto solves that? Because I think it does, right?
Yeah, that's what
Yep.
I'm saying. Because so just to just to like put a bow on this whole thing, and then Fuad I know has a comment as well. So I was asking about beyond just making money, which is the general conception or notion people have about crypto. Like, what are some maybe like social good that crypto can solve? And even like the underlying technology and blockchain, just because like I work in like life science and healthcare as well, like even just protecting patient information, that's something blockchain can do.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
Yeah, it's just so many different use cases, and it's just about like broadening the scope and the understanding that people have of like what this technology is and what does it mean. It's not just money, it's not just a way to make money. It's about social good as well at some level.
I mean, dude, distributed ledgers, um, it's it's basically a way of decentralizing control over anything. So if that's about like health data, for example, it's about putting the granular control over access to like your data into your hands. So one application of blockchain that's really interesting is also the ability to actually have a truly honest system whereby you get compensated by data brokers when your data is used anywhere. Let's say to train an AI model, the owner of the data through blockchain technology can actually be compensated for the use of their data in training a model, and there's no way for the user of the data to cheat the owner of the data or the creator of the data out of what they're owed. That's just like one example. And then when the healthcare, it's like I could literally own my own medical records. By the way, that's like it totally frustrates me that there is no central easy way to just have your records. Like why does my doctor have to fax a requisition to like the radiologist to then who then writes a report after they take an x-ray of my broken hand to then fax the report to the OG doctor, but then I go to like an orthopedic surgeon for a specialty consult, and then that guy has to get like a copy of all. Like it's insanity, and also it's stupid that that then they all have full records about me
Mhm.
when I can just own the record and then like dynamically permission the availability and then retraction of the medical records when my job is done. We
Yeah.
all know that how that works in like in tech with like IAM and granular, basically distributed access, kind of like role management,
Like permissioning.
principles like in
Yeah.
software. We all know also like how you can have like just in time granting and revoking of permissions where like a manager wants to allow a delegated employee to, for example, like at the end of their shift every day in the store, they want to reconcile the registers at a grocery store. They need an hour or 2 hours of all of book access without being able to like drop records or whatever out of the database, delete stuff basically. But
Hmm.
they need that permission. Like you can do that in software. Well, why don't we do that in society for large societal problems that involve data and custodial matters? And so ownership of data, privacy. Um, we can do that for payroll records and businesses. So when employees are basically going to we have this huge government bureaucracy when it comes to the tax system where you have employees that file taxes based on slips that their employer gives them, and the employer produces slips like a slip saying that this guy worked this much and this amount of money was overtime and this was bonus and this was whatever, and they have to like send a slip to the government, send a slip to the employee, and keep a slip for themselves, and then the employee files taxes based on that slip, and then the government does analysis to confirm if like the slips match, and if they agree with if they agree with the information, and or if they disagree with one or both of the parties submitting information. It's like all of this could be solved by having a distributed ledger with smart contracts, which are essentially a form of software that is audited and then cryptographically signed so that it can't be changed, and and then you could actually have instant consensus among all parties about what the truth is. And if a party disagrees, and that's probably going to be the minority of cases, then you have a clear list of cases that then need to be adjudicated on an individual basis. And that is going to be way more efficient than the way that things work today. And fair to people. Fair to people and in respect of their freedom.
Yeah. I think like I mean there's so many good examples. Like I don't know if you know Story Protocol, that's doing like the A16Z just invested 80 mil in their B. I know the
I
co-founder
saw that.
really
I
well,
saw that.
Jason
I
Zhao.
saw that.
I actually met him at a party in Stanford. Super dope guy. He's like actually a year younger than us, which is fucking insane.
That's crazy.
But yeah,
That's
80 mil,
insane.
dude. 80 mil, like that's fucking insane. But kind of like the larger point here that I'm getting, is that it's hard for people to understand because they don't understand how unfair the current system is. Like exactly the PayPal, Venmo, whatever the fuck use case you mentioned is the reason people can't understand blockchain because they actually think that there is no intermediary. Like I'm sending you the money via Venmo. So why do we have to fix something? Like this already exists. It's fine. It's because they don't understand and this is obviously on purpose, right? PayPal and Venmo don't want you to know this. Like they don't want you to know how their inner workings are because they're creating a
Yeah.
margin out of thin air that is conducive to their business, right? And they're maintaining the status quo and their, margin rate and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, that's really the problem. It's like they don't understand how payroll works because these issues are so opaque. They're so layered. You do need like, somewhat of a basis of understanding to understand these things in the first place. And that's why they just don't see the value add. And I think that's really the difference between like the naysayers and the evangelists is that an evangelist for blockchain in any industry is someone who understands how unfair it is. Like someone who actually understands the inner workings of what's going on in the background and why it's so fucking inefficient and why it's actually unfair. And blockchain gives you the ability to solve that. But if you try to explain that to someone who doesn't understand those things, they're just going to be like, I mean, I get a fucking direct deposit in my bank account with payroll, so everything's fine. You know what I mean? And that's why one of the reasons it's so hard to kind of explain. But I wanted to transition the conversation. I'm gonna send you a link, and I'll explain the link for the benefit of the fucking Spotify listeners. I put it in the Zoom chat, but what I wanted to talk about, and the link is to the Digiconomist Bitcoin Energy Consumption Index, which has been memed obviously so much. But essentially, what it is a graph showing annualized, i.e., per year, energy consumption, carbon footprint, electronic waste, freshwater consumption, etc., of Bitcoin specifically. So, as you know, a few anecdotes: 97.63 megatons of CO2, i.e., the carbon footprint of Qatar, and we all know Qatar loves polluting shit, in this year. The electrical energy consumption of the country of Poland, 175.05 trillion watt hours in this year. Electronic waste of Netherlands, the freshwater consumption of of Switzerland, et cetera, et cetera. I could go on and fucking show all these things, but my question to you is, one, does this fucking matter? And two, if it does matter, like do you see this affecting the adoption of crypto like on a large scale on a societal basis? Because this is just Bitcoin. This is one singular, very small use case of blockchain technology in general. But the fact of the matter is, and this is also the case with AI, but we're not going to fucking touch that can of worms on this episode, is that it takes a lot of fucking compute. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of resources, etc. And I'm wondering, like, yeah, I mean, there are obviously a shit ton of benefits that we just discussed, like in IP, in healthcare, in the financial system, in payroll, et cetera, et cetera. But is this like going back to Damien's point on effective altruism? Like, whoever isn't familiar with like effective altruism, it's a framework for kind of basically trying to do as much good as you can with your career and with your time on this earth, and like what your natural inclinations and skills are, and trying to direct that into a certain thing. Now, I could make the argument based on this that like, well, climate change is the single most fucking important problem facing human beings in the next 100 years. And yes, Bitcoin and crypto and blockchain might solve a lot of other issues like political instability, unfairness, all these intermediaries, this power structure. But if it's fucking this that bad, is it worth doing? I
I
don't
mean,
know.
like, there's just like we could talk about energy, and we could talk about like what I think about like the alarmists in general,
Mm,
and I disagree with the alarmists a lot. The other thing that we can talk about is that, like, I actually think if you think about it, the creation of wealth in the world is all about energy.
yeah.
Energy is foundational, in my
Energy
view.
is the original resource, like the
Energy
original
is the
resource.
original resource, literally.
Mhm.
I mean, you could even say that actually, like, before electricity, energy in the form of for example animals and horsepower is the original resource that determined the winner of who's able to produce more. And what you are actually doing is you are at Bitcoin is, if you measure like in exahash, right? You know what
Mhm.
a exahash is? It's the unit of measure, right? That actually measures the production rate of solving the cryptographic equation, which the solving of which results in the Bitcoin network as rewarding you as a miner with a Bitcoin. Now, you are essentially just trading electricity that powers computation.
Mhm.
So you're trading computation for money, for value. We are doing the same thing when we are taking, let's say, energy to make a table out of a tree.
Mhm.
We sell that table, and someone gives us cash. The cash represents, is supposed to represent, if we uh, forget about the
Subsidies and
quantitative
fucking
easing
shit
that the Fed
aside.
does, but the cash represents essentially the energy that was used in the world to create something. We're actually doing the same. We're not, Bitcoin mining is doing the same. It's not it's not uniquely, polluting or anything like that. Like, I don't think the premise of like, that's probably not the premise of your question, but I've heard this premise before where people
Mhm.
will say like, oh, why are like, well, like they're killing the world or whatever. I'm like, actually they're not. It's just more, it's just easier to derive stats that are true.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I mean, that's one of the best counter arguments, I think. Not that I'm taking a side on this argument. I'm just presenting it as a theoretical exercise. But one of the best counter arguments to this supposed point is, okay, yeah, you can calculate the per, transaction cost of a single Bitcoin being transferred. Can you do that with a dollar? Like, how much does it cost to make the fucking cotton of like a dollar bill? like ship it around the world, like the financial underlying financial institutions, like the fucking Fed's office, like the light they use in the office, like you know what I mean? Like that is opaque to someone. And again, it goes back to the previous point we were talking about, but that's opaque to someone. But the energy management of Bitcoin is not by design. And so it's much easier to like be alarmist about the stat.
Let me say what I think, if I may, let's clarify what you're saying and tweak it a little. Think
Mhm.
about this. If someone agreed that the fundamental problem, like one of the fundamental problems of modern monetary policy, is the fact that we don't have anything backing, nothing is backing the US dollar right now. It's
Yeah.
not like the gold standard. You
Mhm.
know that the US dollar used to be backed by gold,
Yeah.
at least in a reserve format, like fractionally. Now, nothing is backing the US dollar, but if gold were backing the US dollar, if we fundamentally agreed that that would be better monetary policy, which it probably is, then you would have to realize that actually what's backing the US dollar? It's energy, because that gold had to come out of the ground,
Yeah. It takes effort,
right?
resources, energy. Everything comes back to energy. Yeah.
Everything comes back to energy. Now, somebody says, what backs Bitcoin then? And what backs Bitcoin is actually energy.
Yeah. It's
It's
the same shit.
733 exahash today. It's the 20 almost 20 gigawatts of mining capacity. That's what backs it, and the scarcity, the fact that we know there is a determinate amount of Bitcoin that can be mined,
Hmm.
and the hash rate. It's a supply constrained resource, because the hash rate is essentially a doubling at certain intervals. So the difficulty of creating a new Bitcoin is becoming uh, is getting higher. You have to do the same amount of math, but you get half of the reward at these different halving dates. The next
Hmm.
one of which I think is in February or March. So basically, I think that it's probably more efficient than the other solutions to solving the monetary problem, like which would involve, taking gold out of the ground. And you don't get any of the benefits, the other benefits of having a digital currency network and storing value in a way that's simply transferable and simply storable, safely storable, simply and safely storable. Gold is not. Gold is hard to transfer and difficult to keep safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean energy, I also think like that's why there's so many geopolitical ramifications here because ultimately all of geopolitics as well can be traced back to just energy. Like yes, NAFTA trading routes, whatever the fuck, like matters. It matters in its representation of the integral resource of energy. And ultimately, like it's very obvious. Like that's why we have these wars. Like that's why the US controls the Suez Canal. Like all of it is tracing back to energy. I don't know. I think it is like integrally tied to the development and adoption of blockchain. It's like how the government, who is a vested interest in preserving its own power stemming from that control of energy, is going to interact with another system that is siphoning control and power of that energy to everyone, right? Democratizing it in a sense. Okay. I have a few follow-ups on energy, but Damien, did you want to interrupt with anything? I'm just a fucking energy nerd, so.
Yeah, no. I mean like that's like the most common counterpoint, I guess, to crypto. And like the other one that's so often said, you've probably heard this a million times, Keon. The other major criticism that people often talk about is that it's just a tool for speculation or a tool for crime, right? Like it's just the currency of the black market. What's the strongest counter argument you've heard for that? Or maybe there is no counter argument needed. It's just part and parcel with what it is.
We got to
or
get
the
our friend
shit
in
is
the
bad?
UN. We got to get our friend at the UN on talking about this.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
yeah, I mean, like, yeah, that's funny. And uh, a good friend, great friend. No, I mean, it's like, well, like, it. There's so many speculative instruments in traditional markets. There's a lot of speculative instruments in traditional markets. We have that people are speculating on, and I mean people can speculate on different crypto coins. Um, I don't know that it's necessarily. I mean, it's not a sustainable investing approach to just simply decide to speculate on everything. Um, you have to look at underlying value in order to be a successful investor. But it's not necessarily. It's not necessarily. I don't think it's the biggest. Like I don't think it's a major issue. And then like crypto can be used to like accomplish scams, and basically move cash without oversight. But I think it's actually probably not well understood that in reality, all of the crypto is not necessarily um, it's not untraceable. It's anonymous in the sense that wallets can just be owned by people and don't need to be associated with their ID,
Mhm.
with their identity, with their name or whatever. But it's never untraceable because every single transaction is, immutably stored in a distributed ledger, and a lot of the network would have to agree to ever change that ledger. So like you actually can't you can't like on you can't essentially fool the like in the case of Bitcoin the Bitcoin network about any particular transaction that you did unless you control the majority of the validators, which at this point it's just impossible to do. So uh, so in a way, every scam is traceable. And I think that there's a lot of nefarious activity that takes place using the traditional financial system and crime that benefits from that still is going on with the traditional financial system. It's just that it's easy to highlight a new technology as being like, you know, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's like easy to demonize. And it's also easy to lionize, like to be fair. Like that's why we have the term crypto bro. Like these guys are just lionizing the shit out of whatever fucking concept that they thought of, right? Um, and they're getting, insane amounts of funding and fucking making Dogecoin ass memes. But it goes both ways. Like you can lionize or you can demonize something. And when it's truly that innovative, it typically is either demonized or lionized. Okay. Uh Transitioning the combo out of this, um, kind of like went through like the story of Bitcoin, the story of crypto, like what's happening now, what's gonna happen in the future. What else are you interested in, Keon? Like what really gets you fucking going other than golfing in Mar-a-Lago?
Oh, what am I interested in?
Like what is
This is
what are the
a lot.
common hobbies of a crypto bro? You know?
I don't know. I love hockey. I love tennis. I love skiing. I own the ski school. I love
Holy fuck.
cooking.
Yeah.
Do you know about the ski school?
No, I don't know. Tell us the story.
By the way, I got to turn the light on here.
That role is amazing.
Yeah, we're getting feet pics out of this too.
I'm here, baby. Um, I had a ski school. I love playing tennis. I love playing hockey. I like to cook. Uh, I did a lot of work in like Fort McMurray, Alberta. It's freezing. What
Mm.
else did I don't know, man.
You had a junior political campaign?
Oh
You want to
yeah,
tell us the
that's
story of
true.
that if it's something you
That's
would be
true. That's
happy to
true.
share?
I ran as a candidate in Canada.
Why did you
Um,
run? Give us the
why
backstory.
I ran?
Give us the whole story. Give us the whole
Dude,
story.
Canada is on a path of destruction.
It is. Yeah.
Like, what is going on? What is going on, man? I was just talking this morning. I have a friend. His initials are GG. Gabriel, if you're listening, you're a great guy. And he made a great point. He's like, dude, there is no reason why Canada is not the richest country in the world. We have the most oil, the cleanest extraction of oil from the ground, most natural resources in terms of minerals, metals, crazy hydroelectric capability, incredible arable farming land, deep water ports that are the envy of the earth, amazing canal systems, um, so much wood that we literally regenerate like 3.7 times the amount of wood that is chopped down every year. Like we're net producing like almost 4 times the amount of lumber. We have hardwoods and softwoods in terms of lumber. We have incredible universities.
Like half of the best talent in tech is Canadian. Like even though everybody goes to the
Waterloo
US.
produces a third of the billionaire engineers.
Exactly.
You know, some of the best lawyers in the world are from McGill, U of T, U Ottawa, UBC. We have insane fishing capability. Most salmon rivers in the world. Best trout fishing. Just there's no reason
So
why
what's the
the
answer?
country cannot be incredible.
What's the answer?
And
Why are we not the fucking richest country on earth?
attitude,
Attitude.
attitude, attitude, and you know what I call it political immaturity, a lack of resilience in the culture, um, and you know, too much complacency, and you could bucket that into attitude. And the other thing is like we're you know, it's not a capitalist society. It's really a corporatist society. You know me, I'm like a big free market guy. We don't have a free market. Not that, you know, like the U.S. is not like also the U.S. has a lot of problems too, but like Canada is like deeper on that problem spectrum.
Hmm.
Uh, 4 airlines, 5 banks, 5 insurance companies, 3 grocery chains, you know, 3 telecoms. What the heck?
Fucking oligopolies all the way down.
Oligopolies everywhere you look. Punishing system of taxation for individual entrepreneurs, small and medium businesses. Insane costs just to survive. You cannot expect a class of entrepreneurial, you know, wise guys, or sorry, entrepreneurial, you know, I mean it in the good sense, like brilliant entrepreneurs to emerge out of the youth to take up the place of the retiring, you know, middle-aged, medium, and small business owners when like the young people can't live. Because you got to be able to live and eat in order to be able to afford not to work, you know, for a short amount of time to get your thing off the ground. These are just basic common sense things that need to be done if you want a country to succeed. We don't have that. We have you know, a anti domestic excellence policy in government. That means don't build pipelines. Well, first of all, don't build pipelines to distribute what you do get from the drilling. Don't you know, add energy capacity other than drilling for oil. Like don't expect insane public projects. We don't have a rail system. Have you ever taken Via Rail?
I've
Yeah.
actually never taken VRL.
I'd
Down to
rather
Montreal.
bike.
I
You know, like,
actually I don't know if they just improved it in the time or so I took it on the way to Montreal. It was actually kind of nice. On the way back though, it was brutal. Like just old carriages, not really a good experience. But on the way there, they had some new equipment to work with.
okay, they have it a new equip. I know what you mean. I agree, but like, and good for them. It's but like just like like we need a visionary that can say. I mean, look, it still takes 5 hours to
We
go
need a
500
Yeah,
visionary. The
yeah,
kilometers.
yeah.
visionary was you, Keon. You ran. What happened? Tell us the
It
story.
needs to be 2 hours. I'll tell the story. It needs to be 2 hours max. Max. There should be 30 trains a day. Dude, I was in Japan. The density of the Windsor to Quebec City corridor is comparable to the density of the highest density areas on Earth, except for China and India. Europe, Japan, the Northeast corridor in the United States, and the Quebec City Windsor corridor all have the same density, but only two of those four places have high speed and high frequency rail. Where are the visionaries in that country to make stuff happen? They're gone. You know why they're gone? Because there was nothing left for them in Canada. That's why I left, and I'm sad about it every day. But in order to do what the minimum I could do, because I didn't want to live guilty, I said I'm going to run, and I ran in the 2021 general election. And I think I ran a good campaign, and I knocked on so many doors. I don't know how many, but a lot of doors. And I spoke to a lot of people, and I think everyone agreed. Almost everybody agreed on like the outcomes that they desired. People just can't agree on surface level issues that just divide the parties. I mean, I don't think that the parties agree on the outcomes. I think they're all pretenders. Everyone, 98%. But the people who are not running for office agree on what they want as an outcome. Affordable ratio of earnings to expenses, opportunity to build businesses, low amount of taxation, high amount of freedom, fairness in business practices, a legal system that punishes criminals, holds civil infractees accountable, promotes the dominance of Canada on the world stage, and has excellent infrastructure and public services. Healthcare, transportation, telecommunication, internet services, roads. They want excellence. And instead we get mediocrity. That's why I ran. So I ran in the election. I ran a campaign. We had some funny incidents. I got an ice cap thrown at me. That was really funny. We persevered. We
Which
had some
party did you run
rallies.
for?
The People's Party of Canada, the PPC.
What does the PPC do for our non-Canadians listening on this podcast? How would you describe the PPC in your own
PPC
words?
is like a libertarian party. The PPC is a libertarian party, which is essentially it's a philosophy, right? It's a philosophy that has to do with it's a philosophy that has to do with promoting the maximum degree of freedom for the individual, limited by when the freedom would infringe on another person's freedom. I mean, I don't believe in anarchy or anything like that. I just think that we should always optimize the law, which is a byproduct of politics, to promote the highest degree of freedom for the individual as possible within a harmonious total environment. Yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. I
But
get what you're saying. I think it's a good description.
it's like really good. I want the government to be great at what it does, but limit what it does to things that are opportunity trampolines for the population. And then the population can then choose how much results they want for themselves in their lives by how hard they bounce on that trampoline. And if somebody doesn't want to bounce on that trampoline, they still need to have a good existence with and a dignified life. If they want to bounce really hard, we make sure that that's the bounciest possible trampoline so that they can go higher, higher, and higher. And if they want to bounce just a little, we also make sure that they can do that too. So what you get in is what you get out. But in order for that to be possible, there needs to be a level, fair playing field and a government that gives you a great base but then gets out of your way. We don't have that, and we don't even have the, I think, ideological alignment in a popular leader right now to achieve that. I just don't think it's there. And that's sad.
Yeah, I agree. I don't follow Canadian politics as closely as I do the US politics because, to be frank, Canada's in the shitter and I don't think I'm going to move back. I hope the Canadian Border Patrol is not listening to this, but um,
What?
I hope the Canadian Border Patrol is not listening to this podcast. But yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, don't
Well,
see myself moving back.
Thankfully, we're Canadian, so they don't have a choice.
They don't have a choice.
We're in. We're in, baby.
All right, Keon, we are coming up to 6, and I know you have a very special appointment after this. We have a traditional final question we ask on the podcast, and I would love to ask it of you because I think you will have fucking incredulous answer. Um,
What's up?
the question is, if you could put any one message on a billboard that would reach billions of people, literally everyone in the world would see this fucking billboard message on their way to work the next morning. What message would you put on that billboard and why?
Demand better beginning with yourself.
That was quick,
Explain.
off the cuff.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but like, yeah, do you have any extra context? You want to add any extra color to that answer?
We don't live forever. And every day, the best gift that we can give to ourselves and the world is to perform an action that means something greater than it costs us. And I think it's an incredibly easy thing to do, but it takes maturity, by a person to do that, to be like, to not think of it as a sacrifice, but rather as an investment that'll pay dividends. And I like to think that it's paid me dividends over the years in my life, and it's a great way to live a dignified existence, whether or not things are going well or not in your life, and in your work, and in your relationships, and in your country. Yeah, adding value is karmically magical, and
It's just a beautiful
Yeah,
thing.
just
I
never
love
gets
that.
old. Just never
Yeah.
gets old.
Well, I hope you can use this in your 2025 PPC campaign video. Just like cut this little snippet out. I think it's gonna fit
Demand
right in.
better.
Man, I'm running my own party.
The Keon's Party of Canada.
Hope for Canada.
I'm forming a super PAC along with Matt's $35, and we are investing in you. All right, Keon, absolutely beautiful, except for the part where you rolled the chair back to turn off your light. That part was a little ugly, but Absolutely beautiful conversation. It was such a pleasure. Really fucking appreciate it. I was very, very excited to have you on, and honestly, I think I exceeded my expectations. I thought it'd be hard to keep a straight face talking to you, but we got pretty serious towards the middle of the conversation, and I think that was really cool, especially around the regulations and stuff like that. So before we close the recording, is there anything you want to shout out? Anyone you want to mention, someone special in your life? This is your Oscar moment. You can shout out like a venture you're working on, although I know on LinkedIn it's a stealth. Anything you want to shout out right now with the rest of the time you have.
Any specific coins? This is not investment advice. I don't know.
I have a feeling I'll be back. Next time I'm back, I'm going to tell you about the really sick thing I'm working on. It's not a secret. It's just too long for now, but uh, I want to, shout out you two for having me on. Thank you. And shout out to the family, my family, and the friends family, for helping me be who I am today. And shout out to the people I'm working on the next thing with. Hopefully, they watch this podcast and they're like, maybe we're not working with as big of a clown as we thought. Um,
For
Maybe
real.
he's actually even bigger of a cloud. Oh man.
yeah, but in all seriousness, my friends and family, um, they've been amazing so far in my 20 something years of life. And yeah, and I'm very grateful. So hopefully they watch this, and yeah, let's do this again. Let's do this again.
Let's run it.